Ladies and gentlemen, let me begin by telling you something that can transform the trajectory of your entire life. Nothing changes until you change your mind. Every single breakthrough, every new level of success, every extraordinary achievement begins not with circumstances, not with luck, not even with resources. It begins with the way you think. See, your life today is nothing more than a reflection of the mindset you've been carrying. If you think in limits, your life will show you limits. If you think in possibilities, your life will open doors you never imagined existed. Your mind is the soil and your thoughts are the seeds. If you plant weeds, don't expect roses. If you plant faith, vision, and determination, your harvest will be abundance, fulfillment, and success. When you decide to stop blaming and start reframing, you step into one of the most powerful shifts you could ever make in your life. Blame keeps you trapped. It convinces you that the reason you are where you are is because of someone else's actions, the economy, your upbringing, your circumstances, or the mistakes of the past. And as long as you live in that state of blame, you give away your power. You hand control of your future to something outside of yourself. But reframing is different. Reframing is the act of looking at the same situation through a different lens, asking not, why did this happen to me? But what can I learn? How can I grow? And how can I use this to move forward? The truth is, life will always present challenges. There will always be setbacks, disappointments, and things that do not go according to your plan. Some of those situations will not be your fault at all, but blaming keeps you tied to the problem while reframing positions you for solutions. For example, imagine someone loses their job suddenly. If they spend weeks or months blaming the company, blaming the manager, or blaming the unfairness of the system, they get stuck. Their energy is consumed by bitterness and nothing moves forward. But if that same person reframes the situation and says, this is not the end, it's a chance to realign with something better. Maybe this job was holding me back. Maybe I needed this push to finally pursue what I've been dreaming of. Then the energy shifts. Instead of despair, there is hope. Instead of defeat, there is determination. The circumstance hasn't changed, but the mindset has, and that changes everything. Reframing doesn't mean ignoring reality. It doesn't mean pretending bad things don't hurt. It means choosing to interpret the reality in a way that empowers you instead of weakens you. When you reframe, you take responsibility not for what happened, but for what you will do about it. That is where your true power lies. You cannot go back and rewrite yesterday, but you can always reframe today and redirect tomorrow. Consider the difference between a victim and a victor. The victim says, this happened to me and now I'm stuck. The victor says, this happened for me and I will rise from it. It is not the event that determines the outcome. It is the meaning you attach to it. That's the essence of reframing. The world can throw you a setback, but it's your interpretation that decides whether it becomes a stumbling block or a stepping stone. Think about Thomas Edison when he was working on the light bulb. He faced thousands of failed attempts. A person trapped in blame would have said, well, can't this work? Why is everything against me? And quit. But Edison reframed each failure as a lesson. He is famously quoted as saying, I have not failed, I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. That is reframing in action. The result of that mindset was the birth of one of the greatest inventions in history. On a more personal level, imagine a young athlete who trains for years to qualify for a championship but loses in the final round. Blame would sound like the referee was unfair, the weather was bad, the other team had an advantage. That mindset breeds bitterness and stagnation. But if that athlete reframes the loss and says, this is fuel for my improvement. This showed me where I need to grow. This is not failure, it's feedback. Then the setback becomes a foundation for a stronger comeback. The difference between blaming and reframing is the difference between being stuck in the past and stepping into your future. Blaming shackles you to what went wrong, but reframing frees you to create what can go right. Every day, life gives you the raw material of circumstances. You don't always get to choose the material, but you always get to choose the meaning. And the meaning you choose becomes the story you live. So the next time something doesn't go as planned, catch yourself before you fall into blame. Ask yourself, how can I reframe this? What can I learn? How can this shape me into someone stronger, wiser, more resilient? When you do that, you transform obstacles into opportunities and pain into purpose. The reality is that greatness is not built in the absence of problems, but in the presence of a perspective that turns problems into stepping stones. If you want to change your life, practice this every day. Instead of saying, why me? Start saying, what now? Instead of saying, "This ruined everything," say, "This may redirect me to something better." That simple mental shift will change you show up, how you feel, and what you create. Stop blaming and start reframing, and you'll discover that the same life you once felt trapped in suddenly has more opportunities, more hope, and more power than you ever imagined. Shifting from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset is one of the most transformative decisions you can make in life because it redefines what you believe about yourself and what you believe is possible. A fixed mindset is built on the belief that abilities, intelligence, and talents are set in stone. You are either smart or you're not, talented or you're not, capable or incapable. People who live with this mindset avoid challenges because they fear failure will expose their limitations. They don't take risks because they see mistakes as proof that they are not good enough. As a result, their potential stays locked inside them, never expressed, never tested, and never expanded. A growth mindset, on the other hand, is built on the belief that you can improve, develop, and expand through effort, learning, and persistence. It recognizes that while you may not be where you want to be today, you can always get closer through intentional practice and resilience. The growth mindset embraces challenges because it understands that difficulty is not a sign of limitation, but an opportunity for growth. It views failure not as a dead end, but as feedback, as information about what to improve next. The difference between the two mindsets is not small, it is everything. A fixed mindset says, "I can't," and stays stuck. A growth mindset says, "I can't yet," and keeps moving forward until change happens. Imagine two people given the same task of learning a difficult new skill like coding or public speaking. The one with a fixed mindset says, "I'm just not good at this," and gives up quickly, confirming their belief that they weren't cut out for it. The one with a growth mindset says, "This is tough, but if I practice consistently, I'll get better." Months later, the second person is presenting confidently or building projects while the first remains in the same place, not because they were incapable, but because they stopped trying. When you shift to a growth mindset, your entire relationship with effort changes. In a fixed mindset, effort feels pointless. You believe that if you were truly talented, you wouldn't need to work so hard. But in a growth mindset, effort is the path to mastery. Every repetition, every late night practice, every attempt, successful or not, becomes part of the process of building something greater within yourself. This is why some people keep rising higher in life while others plateau. It's not just about talent, it's about how they think about growth, effort, and failure. An excellent example of this is the story of Michael Jordan. Early in his career, Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team. Someone with a fixed mindset would have said, "This proves I'm not good enough," and walked away from the sport. But Jordan approached it with a growth mindset. He used that rejection as fuel to train harder, practice longer, and push his limits further. He didn't see the failure as final. He saw it as feedback that he had more work to do. The result of that mindset was a career that made him one of the greatest athletes in history. His success wasn't guaranteed by natural talent alone. It was shaped by the mindset that believed growth was always possible. The same principle applies to every area of life. Whether it's business, relationships, health, or personal development, the growth mindset keeps you moving forward even when the results don't show up immediately. It makes you resilient because setbacks don't define you, they refine you. It makes you courageous because challenges don't intimidate you, they invite you to expand. It makes you consistent because you know that every effort you make today plants the seeds of a better tomorrow. What most people don't realize is that the only thing standing between them and their next level is the story they keep telling themselves about who they are. If you believe you are limited, your actions will match that belief. If you believe you are capable of growth, your actions will reflect persistence, and your persistence will produce transformation. This is why the growth mindset is so powerful. It puts the power back in your hands. So if you want to change your life, begin with this shift. Stop defining yourself by where you are right now and start defining yourself by who you can become. When you hit a wall, don't say, "This is the end." Say, "This is the beginning of my growth." When you face failure, don't think, "This proves I can't." Instead, think, "This shows me where to get better." This simple but profound shift in thinking can take you from a life of limits to a life of limitless possibilities. The truth is, your potential is never capped. It is only waiting for your mindset to catch up with it. When you move from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset, you unlock a version of yourself that is stronger, wiser, and more capable than you ever imagined. And once you embrace growth, life itself begins to expand to match the new vision you hold. Focusing on what you can control, not on what you can't, is one of the most liberating disciplines you can adopt in your life. Too often people spend their energy worrying about circumstances they have no influence over. Politics, the economy, other people's behavior, the past, or even future events that haven't happened yet. The more energy you waste on things outside of your control, the more powerless and frustrated you feel. But when you shift your attention to what is in your hands, your thoughts, your decisions, your habits, your attitude, you suddenly regain a sense of power because you're directing energy where it can actually make a difference. The truth is that life is unpredictable. You cannot always choose what happens, but you can always choose how you respond. That single choice makes the difference between people who feel defeated by life and those who rise above it. When you obsess over what you cannot control, you give away your peace of mind. But when you discipline yourself to act on what you can control, you create progress step by step. Think about the weather. No matter how much you complain about the rain, the sun, or the cold, you cannot change the forecast, but you can decide whether you'll carry an umbrella, wear a coat, or adjust your plans. The person who focuses on what they can't control ends up frustrated, angry, and stuck. The person who focuses on what they can control is prepared, calm, and adaptable. The same principle applies to much bigger areas of life. One of the greatest wastes of energy is trying to control people. You cannot control how others treat you, what they say, or the choices they make, but you can control your boundaries, your responses, and the standards you set for your own life. The moment you stop trying to change people and start focusing on how you show up, you'll experience freedom. You'll stop being drained by someone else's negativity because you'll realize their behavior is their responsibility, not yours. Another area where this principle matters is setbacks. You cannot control the fact that challenges will come, that businesses sometimes fail, that relationships sometimes end, or that plans sometimes fall apart. But you can control whether you quit or keep moving, whether you let the situation define you or refine you. By focusing on your response, you turn setbacks into setups for comebacks. Let's consider an example. Imagine two entrepreneurs launch similar businesses at the same time, and both of them face an unexpected market crash. The first entrepreneur spends months blaming the economy, complaining about unfair competition, and wishing the circumstances were different. Because their attention is fixed on what they cannot control, they remain stuck and their business collapses. The second entrepreneur faces the same challenge, but chooses to focus on controllables. They ask, what can I adjust? What expenses can I cut? What new skills can I learn? How can I serve customers differently in this environment? By focusing on what is within their influence, they adapt, pivot, and eventually find success even in a difficult market. The difference wasn't in the circumstance, it was in the mindset and focus. When you focus on what you can control, you also protect your energy. Stress and anxiety often come from trying to manage things beyond your reach. But when you clearly separate what's yours to carry and what isn't, you free yourself from unnecessary burdens. You start moving forward with clarity because you're no longer pulled in every direction by things you have no power over. This practice requires self-awareness and discipline. It's easy to slip into complaining or worrying about things out of your hands. But each time you catch yourself, you have an opportunity to redirect your energy. Ask yourself, can I control this? If the answer is no, release it. If the answer is yes, act on it. That simple question can change your entire approach to life. The reality is that extraordinary people are not those who had perfect circumstances. They are those who took full control of their decisions in imperfect circumstances. They didn't waste years waiting for the world to change. They changed themselves, and in doing so, they changed their world. So if you want to live with power, peace, and progress, remember this: stop pouring energy into what you cannot influence. Start investing that energy into what you can. You'll find that life becomes lighter, your confidence grows, and your results multiply. Control your choices, control your effort, control your attitude, and those choices will eventually shape the circumstances you once thought you couldn't change. Guarding your mind like treasure is one of the most important principles for building a successful and meaningful life, because the mind is the gateway to everything you create, experience, and become. What you allow into your mind shapes your beliefs, your emotions, your decisions, and ultimately the results you see in your life. Just like a treasure chest, your mind holds something incredibly valuable: your potential, your dreams, and your destiny. If you leave a treasure chest wide open, anyone can walk by and steal what's inside. In the same way, if you leave your mind unguarded, negativity, fear, and destructive influences can sneak in and rob you of your confidence, clarity, and vision. Everything you expose yourself to, what you read, what you watch, conversations you engage in, and the people you spend time with is constantly programming your mind. If you consume doubt, you will live with doubt. If you consume fear, you will live in fear. But if you consume wisdom, vision, and inspiration, you will live with confidence and purpose. That is why it's not enough to simply feed your body. You must feed your mind with the right nutrients every single day. A healthy diet for the mind is just as essential as a healthy diet for the body. The danger is that many people underestimate the power of subtle influences. They think a little negativity here or there won't matter, but the truth is what you expose yourself to repeatedly eventually becomes your internal dialogue. If you constantly watch media that promotes fear, scarcity, or hopelessness, your mind will unconsciously adopt those beliefs. If you spend your time with people who gossip, complain, and settle for mediocrity, you will eventually lower your standards to match theirs. But if you intentionally surround yourself with books that challenge you to think bigger, mentors who inspire you to grow, and communities that push you toward excellence, your mindset will rise to a new level. Guarding your mind requires awareness. It means asking yourself, what am I letting in? Every day, would you pour poison into a glass of clean water and then drink it? Of course not. But when you let negative influences enter your mind, that is exactly what you are doing to your mental clarity. Over time, those small drops of poison cloud your vision and weaken your belief in what is possible. On the other hand, when you guard your mind and only let in what strengthens, uplifts, and empowers you, your vision becomes sharper, your faith becomes stronger, and your determination becomes unshakable. Consider an example of a young student who dreams of becoming a doctor. If this student constantly listens to people who say, it's too hard, only a few make it, you're not smart enough, eventually those voices will become their own. The dream will fade, not because it was impossible, but because the student failed to guard their mind. Now imagine the same student deliberately surrounding themselves with supportive teachers, inspiring books, and stories of doctors who once struggled but persevered. Those positive influences fuel their belief and push them to work harder, study longer, and keep going even when it's tough. The external voices they allowed and shaped the internal voice that carried them through, and as a result, the dream became reality. Guarding your mind doesn't mean isolating yourself from the world or pretending challenges don't exist. It means being selective about what you give permission to influence your thoughts. You can acknowledge negativity without adopting it. You can be aware of fear without letting it control you. It's not about closing your eyes, it's about choosing your focus. Whatever you magnify in your mind will multiply in your life. If you magnify problems, they will grow. If you magnify possibilities, they will expand. The mind is like a garden. If you don't guard it, weeds will grow automatically. You don't need to plant weeds, they come on their own. Negativity, doubt, and fear are like weeds. But if you guard the garden of your mind, pulling out the weeds quickly and planting seeds of faith, knowledge, and vision, you will cultivate a harvest of success and abundance. Guarding your mind is the daily discipline of weeding out what doesn't serve you and nurturing what does. So treat your mind like treasure, because that's exactly what it is. Protect it from destructive voices, feed it with wisdom, and surround it with environments that help it flourish. Your future depends on it. The quality of your life will always rise or fall to the level of your mindset. Guard it carefully, and you will see your life reflect the richness and greatness you've allowed to grow inside. Believing before you see is one of the most powerful principles of transformation because it flips the natural order of how most people think life works. Most people want proof first. They say, I'll believe it when I see it. Show me the evidence, then I'll trust it. But life doesn't operate that way. The greatest successes, the boldest achievements, and the most extraordinary breakthroughs have always been born from belief first. You have to see it in your mind before it shows up in your reality. Faith precedes evidence, not the other way around. The human mind has an extraordinary capacity to imagine possibilities that don't yet exist. Every invention, every building, every business, every work of art began as an invisible thought in someone's mind. The Wright brothers believed in the possibility of human flight long before they ever saw a plane take off. Henry Ford believed in the possibility of producing automobiles for everyday people long before factories were built. Nelson Mandela believed in a free and equal South Africa long before he ever walked out of prison to see it happen. If they had waited for proof, they never would have acted, and history would have unfolded very differently. The challenge is that belief requires courage. It is easy to believe when results are already visible, when success is already proven, when the path is already clear. But real belief shows its strength when nothing on the outside looks promising, when circumstances seem to say the opposite, when all you have is a vision in your heart and a picture in your mind. That is when belief becomes a force that pulls you into your future. It drives your actions, shapes your habits, and fuels your persistence until what you once imagined becomes visible. The reason belief is so critical is that your mind and actions are connected. If you don't believe something is possible, you won't act with the intensity, consistency, or courage required to make it happen. Your lack of belief will cause hesitation, and hesitation kills momentum. On the other hand, when you truly believe something is possible, even before it exists, you move differently. You put in extra effort, you stay up later, rise earlier, and persist longer. You speak about your vision with conviction, and that conviction influences others to believe with you. Eventually, that belief shapes reality. Think of an example of a young musician who dreams of performing on the world stage. At first, there are no audiences, no contracts, no recognition. The only thing they have is belief. Every day they practice alone, imagining themselves standing under the bright lights of a concert hall. Their friends may doubt, their family may question, but they continue to believe. That belief keeps them practicing when no one is watching. One day they get a small opportunity to perform at a local event. They give it everything because in their mind, they've already seen themselves succeed. That small opportunity leads to another and then another. Years later, when they finally step onto a global stage, the world says, look at this overnight success. But it wasn't overnight. It was years of believing before seeing. That belief created the consistency, the practice, and the preparation that eventually made the dream visible to everyone else. Belief before sight is not about wishful thinking. It's about aligning your mindset with the outcome you desire so strongly that your actions naturally follow. When you see yourself as successful, you start making choices a successful person would make. When you believe you are capable, you stop holding back and start showing up fully. That inner vision is what draws the outer results. Of course, belief must be protected. Doubt will always try to creep in. Challenges will tempt you to give up. That is why you must feed your belief daily through affirmations, through surrounding yourself with supportive voices, through reminding yourself of your vision again and again. The more you nurture belief, the stronger it becomes, and the stronger it becomes, the more unstoppable you become. So if you want to change your life, stop waiting to see proof before you move. Don't wait for the world to validate your dream before you act on it. Believe before you see. Hold the vision in your mind even when circumstances seem against you. Let your belief drive your actions, and let your actions create the evidence. In time, what once existed only in your imagination will stand in front of you in reality. That is the power of believing before you see. It turns the invisible into the visible, the impossible into the possible, and the dream into your destiny. Your future is waiting on the permission of your mindset. Life doesn't give you what you want. It gives you what you expect. If you expect failure, you'll sabotage success. If you expect victory, you'll find a way to win. So today, I challenge you, don't wait for your life to change before you change your mindset. Change your mindset first, and your life won't have a choice but to follow. The door to your future is not locked. It's just being held closed by the way you've been thinking. Unlock it. Think higher, think bigger, think better. Change your mindset and watch as your life changes in ways beyond anything you've ever dreamed. Thank you.